Geez, that's a hard act to follow. I never knew that song was written by Lead Belly. I used to have that on an old 78 record. And I used to listen to that over and over and over again. So I was some wicked excited to hear it again. That was a lot better than the old 78. I come here to tell you a little bit about Moose Cove, Maine. I got my Moose Cove sweatshirt on. It's an official Moose Cove sweatshirt. Moose Cove's up a ways. Kind of hard to find. It ain't on the map. You've got to take a wrong turn and then another wrong turn and then you're there. But I got some friends named Harvey and Stella. Harvey and Stella Driscoll, they live up there. They've been there their whole lives. Harvey has. Stella's a transplant, but she's been there quite some time. They're married folks. And Moose Cove's, I feel a little concerned here because that was such a rousing act before me, and there's going to be a belly dancer after me. So I'm kind of the quiet lull between the two exciting things. Yeah. Well, there ain't nothing exciting goes on up to Moose Cove, but I did want to tell you a little bit about Harvey and Stella's neighbor, Molly Eldridge. Molly got married to the snowplow guy, Red Grant, the other day. It was actually about a month ago. It was May 1st, because it was Molly's birthday, and she and Webb had decided that would be a good day, although someone told her that May 1st was not a lucky day to have a wedding. Turned out it was all right. Some things happened. Now you got to know that Molly and Webb, Webb's got a snowplowing business and he mows lawns in the summer, and he had sort of a thing for Molly. Molly's a widow lady. Her husband Frank passed about 5 years ago. And so Webb, I think, it kind of had his eye on Molly, but he was wicked shy. So all he would do was just keep plowing snow and ignoring some of his other jobs. And finally he was still plowing and there wasn't no more snow, so Molly figured that maybe something was going on. And well, they ended up, to shorten that up a little bit, they ended up getting wed. Webb asked Molly out, and they went to the bake barrel, and they had coffee one morning, and they sat there and they talked for hours and hours. First time they'd ever gone out together, and they hit it off pretty good. They'd never really had a conversation before, what with Webb plowing the driveway and Molly holed up inside the house, but they got on like a house afire, and they ended up getting married. So here's what happened at the wedding, and as I say, it was May 1st, and as some people say, May 1st isn't exactly a lucky day to get married, but they engaged the services of the local Unitarian minister, and he was going to perform the ceremony, and that was just fine, and they was going to have the whole thing happen at Molly's house, which is just down the road from Harvey and Stella's place, but they found carpenter ants in the basement, and they was going up into the house. And so Webb and Molly decided maybe they would go over to the bake barrel, which is the local restaurant, and have the wedding there because it was, they were hoping for nice weather. So they got some of the ladies from the church to get out the big crystal glass punch bowl and put that out with the lace tablecloths, because it was going to be an outside ceremony in the late afternoon. And so they set up the table with all of the fancy linens and all that stuff, that ladies like to put out, church ladies like to put those things out. And so they was going to do right by Molly and Webb. Well, they got a punch bowl, and they got a punch into the punch bowl, and they had all them little finger sandwiches, that ladies like to make. And they had the minister coming, they had some guests coming. Now, Molly and Frank, her first husband, they didn't have no children, so there wasn't much in the way of family coming. Harvey and Stella was invited, of course. Actually, they was going to be the best man and the matron of honor. But most of the town was invited. They couldn't all go. A lot of the fellas was out lobstering, so they couldn't get there. But they sent their good wishes, and the day came for the funeral, for the funeral. Some people might say that, but Molly and Webb didn't feel that way. It was, the day came for the wedding, and it was overcast in the morning, and weather was threatening, so they was mighty nervous about the whole thing. But they got to the bait barrel. Molly had on an awful pretty dress. She got it down to the exchange where the ladies trade in their clothes and buy somebody else's clothes, and they always know whose clothes they are wearing, but they're cheap, so everybody likes it. So she had on this fine dress, and Webb was kind of dressed up. He don't dress up too much, but he was kind of dressed up. And the minister drove in his car, and it was kind of difficult because the minister had come down with the stomach flu, and he'd been kind of driving to the bait barrel to do the ceremony, but he had this wicked stomach flu, and he'd lean out of his window in the car and kind of puke as he was driving. He'd drive one hand and then he'd lean out, and it was a nasty bug. So by the time he got there to the bait barrel where everybody's waiting to have a ceremony, he could barely crawl out of his car. Well, now old Ernie, what is Ernie's last name? I can never remember. Anyway, Ernie's 92 years old, and he was the first one that got to the car. He saw the minister kind of fall out the door of the car, and he said, "What's the matter?" And the minister went, And finally, what had to happen was that old Ernie had to perform the ceremony with the minister watching. And you can do that in Maine, as long as there's a legal minister. You can have a ceremony performed by someone. The minister just has to witness. So old Ernie, he got up and he had the little book, and he did the ceremony and read the thing. And Webb and Molly said, "I do," and "I do," and everything was going along okay. The clouds was clouding up, but they pulled off the ceremony all right. You getting all this on the tape recorder here? I got a friend that's a fan of Harvey and Stella. She's sitting right back there, and she recorded me. So anyway, the ceremony come to an end, and all the guests got up out of the folding chairs that they put on the lawn by the bait barrel and headed for the punch bowl and the finger sandwiches. The problem was that it was just about time the lobster boats was coming back in. Some of the fellas come in a little early because they thought, well, maybe they could get there in time for the punch and, maybe slip something into the punch, and wouldn't that be fine? But, so the lobster boats is coming in, and they're just off in the bay, and you can hear them coming. But I don't know how many of you watch the lobster boats come in, but the seagulls fly over them because they're throwing out fish guts and stuff into the water behind them. And so there's this flock of seagulls. And they're diving and they're picking stuff up. Well, they flew right over the bait barrel and the lace tablecloth and the crystal punch bowl and all. And darned if one of them didn't drop part of a fish right into the punch bowl from about 50 feet up. Made a wicked splash, stained the lace tablecloth something awful. And there's this half fish lying there, kind of looking up at the party goers. And so that wasn't none too good. And just about then, there was this tremendous rumble and blow-up coming. And all guests looked up because they thought, oh, just like today, there's this wicked thunderstorm brewing, and it's going to thunder and it's going to wash everything away. Well, it weren't that. It weren't thunder. It were a motorcycle gang. It was Webb's stepson Buster and his motorcycle gang roaring up to the bait barrel. They got there late, but by God, they got there. Well, I don't know how many of you was acquainted with folks in motorcycle gangs, but they're interesting people. Molly said to Stella, after this was all done and finished with, and I was with him here, and she said, "You know, Stella, I'd much rather it had been thunder and lightning." Thank you very much.